Okay, so first of all, thank you for sticking around for our genetic workshop this afternoon. I'm hoping this will be a fun and interactive kind of session as well. So we have microphones. I think we're a small enough group. You can just ask your question if you have one. But our attempt here is to talk a little bit about genetics in general, but also about the tools that we have available to help us with selection, recognizing that we've got a lot of diversity in terms of producers and what they want out of a genetic program in terms of what they want from their ability to choose versus what they want from a genetic advisor to do on their behalf. So we're going to start with the very basic question. And that is, do you believe in the power of genetics? And I think the fact that you're all here probably suggests that you do. But I want to take us back through time. And so I've got a couple of full brothers here. You might even recognize their names if you can read them from that far away. Progenesis Landfall, Progenesis Lakeport. But the point is simply, if you think back to maybe the start of some of our careers, like myself, you'll remember that when a sire analyst went to a farm to pick from two full brothers, the only way really to know which one of the two was the best one to use would have been 5 years later after a progeny test provided that information to you. So we did the progeny test for years and years and years. You know, you would look at two brothers and you would think, well, maybe one is dairy, or maybe think one is structurally more correct. But unless you did the genomic test, which we didn't have back then, you would never know. So in that sense, these bulls, even today, are born with the same parent average, just as, you know, you get on your cows when you have a calf born on your farm, you get a parent average sire and the dam or maternal grandsire, you know that information, but that's all you know. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So in this particular case, we can see because these two full brothers have another full brother that didn't make it to AI, I could actually find a parent average that was still on the Lactanet site. So we can see what their parent average was at birth. So they were born with pretty good genetics, and that's probably why they were created in the first place. But you can see 3,600 LPI today, over 100 kilograms of fat, and 8 on confirmation. But then we can do genomic testing today. So go ahead, Greg. Genomic testing allows us to predict the differences and nearly doubles the reliability of that information. So that's why we do it as well. It's not just to find out which is the better of the two, but you increase the accuracy considerably. And so you can see in this case, we have Lakeport with 77% reliability on his LPI. And you can see his information indicates 94 kilograms of fat. So he dropped on his fat yield in terms of from his parent average, but he went up considerably on his type. So he's 11 for confirmation. So by comparison, if we go to the full brother, you can see that Landfall has a 3,800 LPI, the same 77% reliability for his LPI. Also 11 for confirmation, but he's at 110 for fat. So most farmers, if these two bulls were females, you would say this is the one of the two to focus your attention on. Even though both are very high, this is the higher of the two. And the point of using these two bulls in my presentation is to remind producers that the same principle works for females on your farms too. So a lot of you are very picky about which bulls you use on your farm. You want to use the best ones. The same principle applies to finding the best females in your farms. You can do that right at birth with genomic information. Okay. The principle here, as I've said, works for females as well. I've picked a particular flush 5 animals that were all born on a farm here in BC, and they're full sisters, all from the same flush. So 3,900 LPI, all the way down to 3,674. So the point is over 250-point difference in LPI from top to bottom. And unless you do the genomic test, you would never know that. So it's a very valuable tool if, you know, in the particular case of 5 full sisters, to know which one you would want to focus on. But if you use the wider principle of saying, I have 20 heifers in a pen, and maybe they're from different sires and different dams, you still want to know the same information about which ones to focus on. Go ahead. So one more. Keep going. There you go. I guess I already did this. Carry on. So the other interesting addition, and we can show where to find this, but on the Lactanet site, when we talk about tools a little bit later, when you have females, you can actually, on the ones that are genomically tested, go a little bit deeper and not just say, well, there's 250 points difference between top and bottom, but you can go onto the Lactanet site and discover which traits have gone up and which traits have gone down from their parent average. So some of you remember we used to have something called DGV, or direct genomic value, and it was removed from the CDN site. This is their way of providing that information back to you. So you can see, well, we're not going to go through the traits, but you can see from the bars, production, conformation, functional, that there are different traits. Some went up, some went down. So sometimes you have an animal that didn't change hardly at all in terms of overall LPI. But if the numbers within the LPI change dramatically, you have much better information to make decisions on after you have that genomic test. So a question that I would ask, and I'm hoping to get some actual input here. The question would be, how do you know if you're getting a good return on your genetic investment? Do you ever think about that as farmers? How do you really know that when you use good bulls on your farm, that it's because of those bulls that your herd is actually getting better, not just because you're a better manager? Any thoughts? How do you measure that? Do you use tools on your farm like milk recording, or do you use classification? How do you know that your best genetic animals are also your best animals as a result of that? I'll use the quiet guy in the room, John. How do you know when you've taken your best cow and bred her to the best bull possible that genetics is the reason that that animal is your best animal?
Now, you're not gonna tell me all 5 of those full sisters. Here's what you guys will say. I'll say, okay, so that 3,900 LPI is gonna be the best cow. So when you finally do calve them all out and the 2 or 3 bottom ones are better, you guys come along and say, well, she isn't the best. She is the best genetic future, but she can't necessarily be, she might not be the necessary best cow. So my best cow is by far my best cow in every reason, but she won't show it on paper, and I've done genetic values on her. But my best cow is not what his best cow is.
So I'm glad we're getting to the heart of it.
Best cows I sell. My best cows I probably sell because some people believe the best cow is the most highest producing kilograms of butterfat. So I send them to my neighbor because she ain't gonna go excellent or 87 or better. And then they tell me 7, 8 years later, they're still milking her, and it's their favorite cow, best cow. I can't believe you would sell that cow to me. That wasn't my kind of cow. So I did the genetic test. I did the whole damn herd a couple of years ago. And they kept saying, get rid of the bottom 10%. You have to get rid of the bottom 10% because there's no value in it. Prices go up. I get $3,200 for every one of my bottom 10% to my neighbor, and he loves them. Rule number 1, my discussion, never give to John.
So, but John, isn't
And
this,
Sue Wagner's sitting right there biting her tongue, and she's 100% pleased because she has one of the highest herds out there, and she's got absolutes out of all these other low production, and she can make 350 BCAs out of all of them.
okay, but isn't this therapeutic, John?
No. Well, you know,
Okay, but I'm gonna get back to my original question. If genomics is supposed to work, the only way you can actually measure that, then if you talk genetics animals are the highest ones, they should also be your top performers, right?
we look at the best bulls, yet in our barn, because they're ours, they're all our best cows.
So
Like, I
advance,
can't
advance
use
the
enough
slide.
beef semen because I have to breed that cow to Holstein because her great-great-grandmother went excellent. That was my first excellent cow I ever had. Genomically wise, she shouldn't have been bred. But we have all our favorites. You know what I mean?
I totally get it. I do the same thing. I have an old cow and genetically she's supposed to be bred to beef. And yet she's my favorite cow. All I want is one bar heifer calf. That's the dilemma. That is the dilemma.
Anymore for the dollar. I'm farming for the love.
That's
I
fine.
don't really give a shit if she's 3,600 LPI or 2,900.
Yeah, yeah, I don't.
I'm going home now. So I got my door prize, I got my belly full. Chapman, tell her beware. She's at my place tomorrow.
Okay, well, I'm glad we got John's input before he left. But ultimately, the answer has to be, if we say to you, these are the bulls you should use, these are the cows you should use them on, the only way you can actually measure that in the future is to say, how did our top genetic animals perform relative to the lower ones? And so we did this for 2-year-olds in a BC herd. And so what you see is them ranked by the Pro Dollar Index in Canada, 4 quartiles. And then you see their milk production, their 305-day projected yield for milk. And you see that the top 25% are projected at 10.8. There's 58 of them. And the bottom the fourth quartile, 58 animals with a much lower Pro Dollar, but almost the same milk yield. So what do you think? Did we get a good return on our genetic investment? There's only 100 kilograms difference. Sorry? There you go. Is that a little bit deceiving? So let's tell the rest of the story. So is milk yield the best return on investment? You don't get paid on milk. So I don't know if Tony's still here. This is a DHI advertisement, Tony. So this is the same herd. And the reason I got caught up in this myself. I thought this herd, when I did the analysis, was not a DHI herd. And so I only did the milk. And I was disappointed in the result. And then all of a sudden I realized it is a DHI herd. And so I added fat and somatic cell count. And all of a sudden I have 43 kilograms of fat difference between top and bottom quartiles. So is this one cow, in the top quartile versus one cow in the bottom quartile? No, it's a group of cows, 58 of them in each group. But it clearly shows you that when you select for Pro Dollar in this case, and let's say that fat is the most prominent trait within the Pro Dollar Index, that you're getting performance too from that.